Wow, wow, wow. What a clinical performance by Djokovic in his opening game at the ATP finals in Turin against Stefanos Tsitsipas. What a match. We're going to break it down, of course. Before we do, remember that like button and do subscribe if you are new. Also, if you're listening on a podcast platform, do leave a rating or review. It really does help us out a great deal. Novak Djokovic getting it done in straight sets. And in my preview, I said I think it would be, well, I thought it would be even 3 sets. A close match, which to be fair, it was. I mean, he won 6-4, 7-6 in the end. We'll talk quite a bit about that first set and how well he played, because he played phenomenally well, I thought, in the first set. And the second set, I thought he managed it well. He kept pace with Tsitsipas well enough to then force a tiebreaker, because Tsitsipas was serving first and he was serving very, very well. And I genuinely thought he was in front in that second set, in front in the sense that he was playing the slightly better tennis. But Djokovic managed the set really well, took him to a tiebreaker, and then managed the tiebreaker a lot better as well, as he did in Paris in that deciding set. Exactly the same thing happened today. So what happened? Well, Djokovic came out and there was no, just warming into it, getting used to the courts from Djokovic or Tsitsipas, honestly. Both players started striking the ball extremely well. And I've got some stats that I will supplement my thoughts analysis with as well. And then at the end, I'll talk about and run through even the stats for the match and talk about how that may have had an impact as well. But Djokovic, for me, in that first set, played an incredible set of tennis. And the biggest thing that came out of that set for me was the forehand. Now, they have this insights, kind of statistical metric, which they're using at the ATP finals. And they had it last year as well in London. And they're very interesting. Like they're not the usual stats that you normally get. They have, for example, forehand. So I guess it's really a metric for how potent someone's forehand is. They also have, attack, so how well someone's attacking in terms of the quality. But really, we're looking at the potency and quality of someone's forehand. So it takes into account spin, speed, depth, and then the impact as well that forehand is having. And the metric is out of 10. It's out of 10, right? Bear this in mind. Djokovic's forehand for that first set was at 9.8. 9.8. He was pretty much close to perfect in that first set on his forehand. Now, let's kind of just rewind 10, 15 years ago. Djokovic's forehand was not a massive weapon. Now, he has revolutionized his game to the point where every single aspect, apart from, you might argue, the overhead, but such a, not a small part, but it is a smaller part of someone's game. Every single aspect is almost flawless technically, and it just comes down to how does he implement the tools at his disposal? How well does the other player on the other side of the court play? Fine, but really, for the majority of the time, on any surface and any matchup, apart from I would say Nadal on clay, it's really in his hands. That's how highly I rate him, and his game is such an incredible all-round game. And the fact that he was able to hit his forehand so well and so cleanly in that first set, to me, really highlighted how complete Djokovic's game is. And not just that, but how, if this was a slower surface in normal time, he beats Tsitsipas in straight sets. Went to Paris, quicker surface, beat him in 3 sets. Very, very close match. This one, a relatively close one, not as close as Paris. Very quick surface, still comes out on top. Doesn't matter how quick the court is. He now extends his head-to-head to 10-2 against Tsitsipas. Now, bear in mind, Stefanos Tsitsipas' forehand was at a 9.2. So his was incredible in the first set, but just not as good as Djokovic's. Excuse me. And what Djokovic did really well is he played a lot more expansive and maybe a more attacking brand of tennis to what we're used to seeing him on some of the other surfaces in other tournaments. He realized that, look, these courts are quick. I can't afford to play, pedestrian tennis at any point. Every shot needs to have purpose and meaning. And to be fair, that is, for me anyway, that is something that sets him apart is normally the depth on his ground strokes. But sometimes he'll go deep down the middle. He will. He'll go deep down the middle and he'll know that he can force mistakes. On this surface, though, I think he realized that, look, if I give Steph any little edge, he will dictate with a forehand. And on a quicker surface like this, I could then be in trouble. And we saw in Paris with the into forehand, Steph had a lot of success. Well, he had, a fair amount of success with it. Today he had some, but he wasn't able to make as many forehands. Djokovic kind of kept him at bay, and I'll explain about that. Explain how in a second. So what Djokovic did really well is mix up and be brave on the forehand side. So I think the stat was 50% of his forehands went down the line. And when they went down the line, we can just assume the quality was great given the metric I just quoted. So he's going down the line, but with good depth, good pace. And they actually showed that the majority, I think it was more than half of his forehands, he was hitting at 130 kilometers an hour or more in that first set. So he was not only hitting with great depth, and great spin, but pace as well through the air, through the court. He was flattening it out, and he was winning points with the forehand, which normally we may not expect. And that's what was incredibly impressive. Now, going down the line, of course, means going into Tsitsipas' backhand, which is the perceived weaker side, which it is. Tsitsipas, though, in all fairness, did hit the backhand quite well today, I think. But the big issue, I think, is that it's still not a weapon, really. It's not. Yes, he can hurt you at times, but it's not a consistent weapon. There's still quite a few shanks on it. On a quicker surface, you're going to get that. He has a big backswing on that side. He ended up conceding quite a few free points because of shanks, which I said he needed to avoid in the preview. But it's hard with that technique. You need to shorten the backswing. It is completely remodeling it to a degree, and getting that muscle memory in if you're just going to shorten the backswing even at times. The slice, I think he utilized quite well at times. But Djokovic was just really, really good. Really, really good. Because what he did extremely well is not only did he go 50% down the line to the backhand and rush Tsitsipas, but he actually backed himself in the forehand-to-forehand exchanges. And what that meant is today he came out on top on those exchanges because the spin, the angles, and the potency of the forehand was actually better in quality than Tsitsipas's today. And that was extremely impressive. Well, especially in that first set anyway, it was. And Tsitsipas was having to defend quite a lot on the forehand side. We saw the squash shot come out quite a few times on that forehand. And Djokovic was just dictating proceedings. And then, of course, when he wants to, he can just go to the backhand on the line and hit that cleanly. And, again, Tsitsipas would scramble on that forehand side. So that was incredibly impressive from Djokovic. Also, a couple of good net points as well, where he came forward really impressively, showing the completeness of his game. Tsitsipas, in fairness, was very, very good as well, I thought. We'll talk more about the second set because I thought he was even better in the second set. But first set, a couple of really good points where he managed to get on the front foot and then finish off the point nicely with some beautiful drop shots. I think he utilized that really well throughout the match. And especially against someone like Djokovic, who chases down drop shots, for fun. But Tsitsipas utilised them at the right times and placed them, to perfection. Although there was one in the first set that he played, wasn't quite good enough. Djokovic got there and played this incredible dink, an impossible angle cross court for a return drop shot winner, and it was just so good. So we can talk about the second set now because I'm interested to dive into that. The second set was an interesting one because Tsitsipas, would have been disappointed with the first set, of course. It got broken. Djokovic holding his nerve at 5-4. And, he got broken in the opening game as well, Tsitsipas, of that first set. So to then recover, I guess, try and pick himself up and dust himself off and go again, it can be tricky at times. But the one thing I have to say about him is that for the most part, although we saw it against Coric this year for one of the only times I've seen it from him when he's given up or not really given effort, but for the most part, he does give 100% effort. He does fight. He will mentally normally stay with you for the most part, unless in curious, I guess. But the second set he served sublimely, incredibly well, I thought, especially down the tee from the juice side, a lot of aces. Then utilized this short slice serve out wide on the juice side as well. Won quite a few points with that. And then from the ad side, I thought he mixed it up beautifully as well. And I just think his serve, his first serve, is very, very good. The technique, everything doesn't look quite, it just doesn't look the prettiest, but it's clearly effective. Yes, it's a quick surface. Yes, it's zipping through, but this is still the best returner to ever grace a tennis court. So it's still an incredible performance, and we'll go into those stats in more detail in a bit. Well, what Tsitsipas I thought did really well in the second set is kind of trying to get on the front foot, trying to be a bit more, adventurous, I guess, because despite Djokovic going 50% down the line with the forehand, Tsitsipas was only going, I think it was 40% down the line with the forehand, 30% on the backhand. Which, is a little bit cautious, I guess you could say, in comparison to Novak. Especially with the forehand. I know Tsitsipas's forehand cross is great. Probably was expecting more 3 points in the forehand to forehand exchanges, but as soon as that first set happened, he should have thought, let's switch it up a little bit. And I think he did. He started to move a little bit away from that. I think he started to realize that, look, I need to try and utilize my forehand more. And what he tried to do as well is really protect the backhand side and go into out with the forehand as much as possible, and then go into in, and then come to the net. That's a play he really, really loves, and he had success with it. He did a couple of great lobs as well against Novak, and either a winner or Novak ended up hitting the overhead into the net. So some really, really, really good points where the longer rallies, he came out on top and constructed the point extremely well, I thought. But then, he's playing the better tennis. He doesn't take, let's see, in that second set, did he have break point? Yeah, so he had one break point, didn't take it. In the first set, he had none. So he had one opportunity to break, open up one. Couldn't take it, fine. Go to a tiebreaker. And Djokovic managed the tiebreaker a lot better. Now, Tsitsipas hit an ace for the first point. But then he went 5-1 down. Now, he brought it back to 5-4. But then, as you can see, Djokovic took it 7-4. Now, what really turned the game for me was, or turned the tiebreaker for me, was at 4-1. If I'm not mistaken. Not a 4-1, sorry. It was at 3-1. Djokovic hits an incredible split backhand pass, cross court. Like, it was just incredible. Past Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas challenges it. It's clipped the line. Unreal. Classic, vintage Novak Djokovic. It was an incredible shot. It really was. And, it will be one of the shots of the tournament. for sure. And it was just pure class, pure quality, and it turned the tiebreaker even more in favor of Novak. And from then on, it was just an uphill battle for Tsitsipas, because even though he managed to bring it out to 5-4, Djokovic still, in control, and then closed it out in the end. So, look, Tsitsipas played some really good tennis. I think he can hold his head up high. I think he has a good chance against Medvedev and Rublev, who played an absolute epic earlier today. Rublev having to really fight to get that victory in the end. Probably should have taken it earlier and done a straight setter, but in the end, had to win it in 3 and a deciding tiebreaker as well. But the red group, I think, is wide open. I think Djokovic will top it by the looks of it. But the other 3 is very open, especially with Rublev being Medvedev. It now opens up beautifully. So let's see how we get on. But anyways, thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. Do check out the Slices Monday Bagel newsletter. The link is in the description of this video. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. Remember to that like button, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you on the next video.